Today we're going to be looking at another lesson dealing with the percentages. It's called an Affordable Care Act, lesson 1.4. So go ahead and open that handout. Okay, so let's look at the objectives. So in this lesson, students will understand that flexibility with calculation is an important quantitative skill. Different methods of calculation are often possible and helpful. You guys will be able to write calculation in at least two different ways based on equivalent form for fractions, decimals, the relationship between multiplication and division. We're also going to look at the commutative property and the order of operations. So a lot of these should sound familiar to you. And we'll review those concepts through this lesson where we'll explore something that's called the Affordable Care Act. All right, so let's read this passage right here. The government offers financial aid to low-income individuals and families who enroll in the marketplace. The amount of aid depends on many factors such as income, family size, and location. Federal poverty line are used to see if an individual or family qualifies for aid when buying insurance through the marketplace. In 2016, the federal poverty line is $11,880 for an individual and $24,300 for a family of four. Individuals and families making 100 to 400% of the poverty line are considered low income. The government uses this information to figure out how much a family can pay for healthcare coverage. The government offers financial assistance to cover the rest of the cost of healthcare coverage beyond what the family or individual pays out of pocket. If a household income is between 100 and 133% of the federal poverty line, that individual or family would not have to pay more than 2% of their income to cover their health insurance costs. In this situation, a family would pay 2% of their income as an out-of-pocket expense for healthcare coverage. The government would pay for the remaining cost of coverage in the form of a tax credit. The table below summarizes the expected contribution for the healthcare cost for a family of four having an income between 100 and 400% of the poverty line. An individual or family making more than that 400% would not be eligible for financial aid from the government. A premium is the amount of money that needs to be paid for insurance. The problem is that many low-income families are having trouble understanding how to calculate the cost of healthcare coverage under the Affordable Health Care Act. Some of you might know this act as Obamacare. It's been in place since 2016 and it's still available to the families or individuals to sign up on the government website. So we'll try to understand how the mathematics work. So this is the information that would allow us to solve everything pertaining to the situation. Now, first question. So we read a pretty dense passage. And one thing that I would like for you to think about, and I would like you to write your response individually, is the following. Question number one. What are the factors that determine how much money low-income individuals or families will pay for healthcare coverage? So go back into the passage and find the information that will answer that question. I'll give you a moment. All right, so let's go over what factors can contribute to the how much the families will pay for healthcare. Now, some of you might have looked at this information at that passage and found the following, which is in the first paragraph. It says that the families that have, let me highlight this right here. So there's something here, the factors such as the income, family size, age, and location seems to be the thing that would be important, right, when it comes to healthcare coverage. And yes, they are important when it comes to the amount of the aid. All right. However, there's something here that you will find which basically answers the question, and that is that in this, you see, it says that the family will sort of expected to pay a certain amount when their income falls in a particular bracket. You see? So, in other words, if the family falls into a given category, then this amount right here is what they expected to contribute as a percentage of their income. If they fall into any of these brackets, and we're going to discuss of how to determine what bracket one falls on, but their contribution is solely dependent on that. Anything else is going to be covered by government. And yes, in certain places, for instance, New York State, the healthcare costs are more expensive than some other locations. So therefore, the government will have to supplement more for people living in a place like New York compared to someplace else. However, the individual's contribution will not depend on their location. So the only sole factor to answer question number one is the income and nothing more. Okay, so let's write that down. Only income. Only that will determine the contribution. So now, following up with that question, let's go ahead and talk about mathematics behind the calculations of the contribution. So the second question is asking us, what does it mean if a family, or it says not a family, an individual has an income that is 150% of poverty line? All right, so what is that? Well, first of all, let's go ahead and find what's the poverty line for an individual, and we're looking backwards in the year 2016. So what is that number? Can you see it in the passage? The poverty line for an individual? All right, yes, it's in the second paragraph. It's right here. It's $11,880. So let's write that number down. $11,880. Okay, let me just make sure I got the right number. Yes. And then we're going to go ahead and find 150% of that. Fortunately, in the previous lesson, we already seen percentages that are higher than 100. Remember that question on the markup, right? When you add 15% to the cost, then it becomes 115%. So 150% is similar way. It's basically 100% and another 50%. But the way you would calculate this is the same way as with any percentages. You're going to go ahead and multiply that percentage times the amount, $11,880. All right, so let's do that. Or let me ask you first to put that answer in. Okay, and now let's go over it. So 150% is going to be 1.5. You can include 0 if it's easier for you. Because what is 150%? It's 150 divided by 100. 1.5, 1.5. So 150% is 1.5. A whole and another half. That's what 1.5 is. So when you're multiplying by $11,000, okay, it's kind of like distributing it in. When you multiply it by 1, it's going to give you back what you started with. And then 0.5 gives you the additional half of that. Right? So it's one of the ways that you can calculate it. So times 1.5. So that's going to be, I'm using my calculator, so it's 17,700. All right, so now, can I ask you to do another way to calculate 150% of that amount instead of multiplying by 11,800? Is there any other logical way to do that calculation? Would you please share? If you don't have a method, just say, I can't think of anything. All right, so the other way that one could think of what 150% is, 150% can be thought, as we said earlier, as 1.5, which is the same thing as 1, and like that. So it's 1.5. I just want you to kind of understand the percentages in the quantitative way, using quantitative reasoning. So when we say 1.5, what does that mean? Well, 11,800 is, this is a whole, okay? And then what's a half? Well, a half of 11,800 is, you divide this by 2, so that would be, or multiplying by 1/2, so that would be 5,900. And if you put those together, so that number and that number, that will give you 17,700. So that's how you can think of this logically. A whole and a half, 150%. By the way, what would be 200%? Right, that would be twice. 300%. Right, 3 times, and so on. 350%, 3.5. All right, so each 100% gives you a whole. 200%, 2 wholes. You see? Be comfortable with that. That's what the course is about. Just get comfortable with the numbers and then using them for interpretations. All right, so let's continue with this Affordable Health Care Act. So the next thing that we're going to be looking at is, it says, William and Vanessa and their 2 children have a yearly income of $31,200. We want to calculate this family's income as a percentage of a poverty line. Remember, the poverty line for a family of 4 is 24,300. All of this data is from 2016. Right now, our numbers are higher, but the idea is the same. Alrighty, so now let's look at this family. So they're making 31,200. Is this more than the poverty line or less? More, absolutely. So it's more than 24,300. How do we find what exactly it is as a percentage? And listen to this carefully. Well, we use 24,300 as what we call a base. This is our foundation. This is 100%. And 31,200 is more. Okay? When you set up a percent, if you want to calculate the percent, the way you want to set this up, and this might look familiar to you, is this idea of the amount divided by the base. When you set it up as a fraction, that will give you, any fraction can be converted in a decimal format, and a decimal format is related to exactly percentages, right? So for example, if we can say, let's say 10 out of 30 students commute to school, or let's say in the 30 students, out of every 30 students this semester, 10 people take a class online. If we want to express it as a ratio, we do 10 out of 30. Just understand, when you put it in a fractional form, it gives you a fraction of a whole. Here, notice the amount is less than a base. So what you get is what we call a proper fraction, which reduces to 1/3. If you write it as a decimal, you're going to get a repeated 3.33333, and the first 2 digits right here represent the percent. So this is about 33% of the students. So I hope you have I'm hoping that you have an intuitive understanding of a percent. And if you don't, we're going to see this throughout the course this semester. Alrighty, so in our case, this family is making more than the poverty line. And therefore, as a percent, we expect that they are earning more than 100%, which represent the poverty line. When we set it up this as a fraction, it becomes what? $31,200 divided by the base. Use your calculator. I'm going to punch the numbers in my calculator. Any calculator would be fine. It's just a regular division. All right, and don't think about dividing because you have a larger number, smaller number. Don't think about what operation needed to be done. Think about what you're doing. You're finding a percent. So what you want to think about is what is the base? And the base in this case is the denominator. So once you divide it, you're getting 1.2839 and so on. Let's write a couple of digits, maybe like 4, and let's round it. So 2839, which is going to be 40. I'm just rounding, okay? So that means they're making 1.2840 of the poverty line. Okay, so the numbers like that are converted into percentages. How? Notice we haven't done this yet in this class. So if you want to go from a fraction to a percent, you first get a decimal, and then you multiply this by 100%, which represents a whole. That's a conversion. You're basically writing it as a percent. So what will happen is that the decimal point will move 2 places to the right, and you're going to get the following answer. 128.4%. We're going to leave it as that. If you ask to round to a whole percent, it will be 128. I'm going to leave it as that. So notice that they're making 100% and another 28, which is about like a third. So it's close to 30%. So that's how much they are making. Now, why do we need this information? Well, going back to sort of what this lesson is about is determining the healthcare cost which is based on an income, all right, when we're looking at the Affordable Health Care Act. So if you go up to that table, you're going to identify the percentage of poverty line as your first column, and you're going to see in what line does it fall, and we're going to highlight it. So this family falls into the second category between 130. Oh, where are they? Oh, they won 28%. So they are in the first category. All right, right here. I apologize. Let's erase this. Okay, and let's highlight the very first line. So they are at 128%. So they are in the first line in this table. So therefore, they, based on that low, they expected to pay 2% out of pocket for that insurance. 2% of what? 2% of their income. Not more than that. And that's before any other tax breaks. All right, so they expected to pay 2% of their income. Notice that we needed to know where they fall first in order to determine their family contribution. All right, so now that's your turn. Part B, calculate what is 2% of their income. Go ahead, what would that be? Okay, so let's calculate that. So let's review that. So it's going to be 2% of their income, not the poverty line, their income, which is $31,200. And notice this is again going back to calculation of a percent. All right, now you can do this logically, by the way, because the numbers are kind of nice. I want to show you kind of on the side, sort of an idea of how you can do things in your head, especially, sometimes that can be useful when you want to do mental math quickly to make maybe some kind of financial decision. So how do you do a 1% quickly? Take a look at this. 1% is 1 out of 100. Notice how this number ends with 0, 0. So that tells us how many hundreds are there. So if you want to find what 1%, what you simply do, you just simply move the decimal point 2 places to the left, and you get it immediately, like that. That's how you can find a 1% of any number. Just move the decimal point 2 places to the left, and you got it. All right, so it's 312. It works with any number. Let's say you want to do 1% of $535. Boom. So 1% is 535. Okay, quick calculation. All right, 10%, you only move one place. All right, so then 2% would be double that. So 2% would be 312 times 2 because it's percent and a percent. So that's 624. All right, now you don't have to do it this way. You can just go ahead and do this the traditional way. 2% is 0.02. Remember, divided by 100, or use the percent symbol in your calculator. Or you can even type it out like that, and let's say in decimals. So you got that. and then you multiply 31,200, and you're going to get the same answer, $624 per year. The word here that we also need to kind of look, it says premium contribution. Did it say what they are? It does say in a passage, if you go back, these are the yearly numbers. Okay, annual. That's how much you do each, they pay each year, not each month. All right, that would be crazy, $624 per health insurance, which some families do pay. But here, based on this, it's not, it's not what it is. It's per year. So the question did ask us to do it per month, but since we know what it is per year, we're going to divide this by 12 equally, and we'll see what that is. So 624 divided by 12, which is $52 per month for that family. All right, that's making between 100 and 133% of the poverty line. Okay? Alrighty, so now let's look at this example kind of a little bit deeper, just to understand, what goes behind all of this, because, the plan itself costs more. The family pays that amount, but then the question is, who pays the rest? Government pays the rest. How much do they pay? Well, that's where that problem situation number 2 comes in. So families have options when selecting a plan in the marketplace. There are 5 categories: catastrophic, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. The silver plan is considered the standard plan, and individuals or families that have income between 100 and 400% are considered low to moderate income, and they will receive the financial assistance to cover additional costs. So the only thing that the families who sign up for the silver plan will have to pay are those percentages that are dependent on the income, and the rest is covered by the government. Now, if the family decides to sign up for a higher plan, then the government would still only cover the cost for the silver plan, and the difference will be paid by the family. All right, so now let's go ahead to that example about William, Vanessa, and their 2 children. So it's a family of 4. The plan, the standard plan, the silver plan for that family in the place where they live actually cost $11,064 per year. All right, so that's how much the plan is actually cost. If William and Vanessa enroll their family in this plan, how much will the family receive in the form of government monthly aid? Monthly aid to help cover the insurance costs. So first, what I would like you to do is to calculate what is the monthly cost of this plan. Can you write your answer? If the yearly cost is $11,000, what would be the monthly cost? All right, so you go ahead and take that amount, and you're just dividing it by what? By 12. All right, so that's the cost of the plan. So 1164 divided by 12. So that plan actually costs $922. By the way, who gets that money? The insurance company. They're getting the money because they are the one who are managing it. So they will be getting $922 per month. Okay, let's just be clear. That's per month. That's the cost. Then what would be the cost in terms of the aid? Well, the family pays no more than 3%. I mean 2%. We did this in the previous question. They are paying $52 a month. The government, the federal government, will pay the rest. What would that be? Give me a moment to calculate that. All right, yeah, so here you just subtract. 922, take away $52. So the aid is $870 a month. All right, so that's in the form of the tax break. All right. Next is, let's consider another family. So it's basically just another example of the same same concept, just gives you another example of these calculations. So we're looking at family. Where is it? Um, yeah, so William and Vanessa have neighbors who are trying to figure out which healthcare plan is best for them. Their neighbors, also family of four, they have an income of $74,000, and they also interested in a standard plan which costs the same amount because it's in the same area, but their income is $74,000. So let's figure out how much would they have to contribute. Well, in order for us to do this, we need to figure out where they fall. So it says, what is the maximum percentage as this household income would have to go towards the healthcare coverage? So let me give you a moment. Find out where they fall in this table and how much are they expected to contribute per year as a percentage, and then we'll calculate that. So the answer here would be a percent. Alrighty, so they are making $74,000. Okay, $74,000, and the poverty line again is, we gotta look it back up. So the poverty line is 24,300. By the way, that information will be provided to you. In the questions that you will see, the numbers will be updated based on the current numbers, but the concept would be the same. You divide it by the base, by the poverty line. So they're also making more than 100%. Now let's see what exactly that percentage is. So we're going to grab our calculator, and when we want to divide 74,000 divided by 24,300, notice that fraction is not proper, so we're getting a number more than 1. All right, so it's 3.05 if we round it off to the nearest percent. So it's 3.05 to the nearest 100th place. I'm already thinking of percentages. So if we convert that into percent, that would be 305%. Remember again back, I asked you earlier, what's 300%? That's 3 times. So they're making more than 3 times the poverty line. Well, if they make more than 3 times the poverty line, they fall inside this category. So their contribution towards that plan is 9.5% instead of 2. All right, so they're paying 9.5% for that plan. Of what? Of the income. Okay, so that's what part B says. Calculate the maximum amount of money that they would spend per month. Their income, $74,000. So we're going to go ahead and multiply. When you're converting the number that has a decimal already, there's quite a lot of times students make an error and they do not move 2 places. They kind of assume that 1 place is already in place. No, you're still dividing it by 100. So you still move 2 places, so you ended up with 0.095 rather than just 0.95. You see, there's another 0 right here. Okay, be careful, it's a very common error. All right, so we're going to take 0.095, and we're going to multiply by $74,000, and they need to pay $7,000.30 per year. That's their contribution. Divide this by 12 because we need, the question is asking per month. So divide it by 12, and for that same plan, this family is end up paying $586 per month. The rest will be covered by the government. It didn't ask us to calculate that. Oh, actually it does. In Part C, it says if the Aziz family choose the same standard plan as William and Vanessa, then what would be the government aid? Well, remember that the plan itself cost $11,000. So it's $922 a month. $922 a month. They paying, so $922 a month is the cost of the plan. All right. They pay $586. All right, so that's a family. And the rest is going to be a government tax break. So that would be, you got to minus those two numbers. So it's 922 minus 586. And I'm keeping everything to the nearest dollar. So 336. So they're getting a lower subsidy. And then it says discuss the relationship between the household income and expected contribution toward the healthcare cost. So can you write a complete sentence, so a few sentences describing what happens? So as income gets higher, what happens to the family contributions? All right, so let's go over it. As the income goes higher, the amount of money that the family will contribute towards the healthcare cost will increase. Not only the percentage that they expected to pay would increase, but the actual dollar amount will also increase, since the higher income means higher percentage. And when you take a higher percentage of the amount that's higher, that results in a significant increase in their payments. Make sure you write that down. Okay, now just please understand the Affordable Care Act was, and it still is, it's a provision that would allow everybody have an access to healthcare. That was its provision. It is costly because of the cost of healthcare in the United States, but it does open up some possibilities for those who are not eligible for, let's say, Medicaid or Medicare, and their employer doesn't provide health care, which a lot of employers do. Okay, it's something that you also want to look for when applying for a job, to see if the employer provides a healthcare coverage. If they don't, then that's an option that's also available. And that concludes the lesson.